Hello and welcome to my video lecture associated with some rules for using indexes. Most students, when they are made aware of the fact that they can create indexes, sometimes get the idea that, woo, I should make indexes on everything. Boy, it makes everything so much faster. That is not the case. You really need to be judicious on your creation and use of indexes. So first of all, we only want to do this on our larger tables. You are not going to receive any benefit by putting an index on a table that has, 1,000 records in it. Database management systems are usually installed on servers that have gigs of RAM memory, lots of processors, are very, very, very fast. Usually have SCSI disk drives, which are very fast. So unless you're talking about large tables, indexes probably aren't going to reap the benefits you want them to. And conversely, because of the maintenance hit that you get with data entry on indexes, they may counterbalance one another. Only put indexes on large tables. Number 2 says index the primary key of each table. Now again, if you only have a lookup table that has 20 values in it, you're probably not going to get any benefit out of using an index on the primary key for that table. If you had a table full of states, there are only 50 states, you're not going to get any value out of that. Besides the fact that it's a table that's probably should be read-only. You're not going to get the values that are in the states table are not going to change that often. You want to index search fields. We're going to get into SQL in Chapter 6, but there's something called a where clause, and the where clause filters the data that's going to be returned to the user. In order to allow the database management system to find those records quickly, you may want to index them. And there are different kinds of values. So we're going to talk about that in number 5. There are fields used in order by and group by commands. And again, we're going to cover those in Chapter 6. But order by is simply show me all of my students in last name and first name order. For instance, group by is used when we're summarizing. So show me how many customers I have in the city of Atlanta, for instance. Fields that are used in order by clauses and group by clauses might make good candidates for using an index. When there are 100 different kinds of values, but not when there are less than 30 kinds of values. So, for instance, if we are using states, there are going to be there's a possibility of having 50 different states, but that's about it. So that might not be a good place to use an index, and that's usually this is what we're referring to cardinality. How many different kinds of values are there? Certainly, if it's a true-false column, you're not going to use an index. There's a caveat to that there's a type of index that you can use on that, but that's an advanced topic. So moving on, yes, I have more rules. Avoid using indexes on long values. So for instance, if you have a varchar that's allowing 1,000 characters, you probably don't want to use an index on that. That's going to be fairly large. So that, again, it duplicates all of that data. So all of those large values get pulled into a separate table with row IDs, so you probably don't want to use long fields. And if the key is an index used to determine the location of a record, so that has to do with actually finding like the row ID. Don't bother doing that. You probably want to use a surrogate, like a sequence. The database management system may have a limit on the number of indexes per table and the number of bytes per indexed fields. So you have to be aware of that. Certainly Oracle does. And be careful when you're indexing attributes with null values. So many database management systems simply don't recognize null values in the index search. So you have to be careful that the field that you're indexing doesn't have null values in it. And again, that depends on the database management system. So again, just some rules. Indexes need to be used judiciously. And usually by experienced designers know when and when not to use indexes. I just want to make you aware of the fact that you don't just use indexes anytime you think they're necessary, because they're not always necessary, and sometimes they actually cause problems. And that is the end of my video lecture associated with rules for using